Vincent's been up here a lot, so it's never happened.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call a meeting to order. It's Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Born and unborn.
Okay, minutes and reports received and filed.
I have December 2019 sheriff fees filed and December 2019 auditor's report filed.
Okay. Commissioner Committee liaison reports, upcoming meetings and events.
Planning Commission meeting tonight, and MAC Board of Directors tomorrow, Campo Board of Directors tomorrow, quarterly reports are due tomorrow, Bill Farr's pre-retirement parties tomorrow night.
It's a secret.
It is?
Yeah. Bill won't remember, you know.
You gotta put it on my calendar as such.
Oh, he won't. He didn't hear us anyway.
Whoops.
Just don't invite.
Yeah, that would be really
Make it
good.
work.
Like that.
That's Cole County Fire Protection District has a dance. Is it just a dance or dancing at dinner?
Yes,
Okay, for anyone, the dance is for anyone, right? Or is it just,
it's just our regular annual dinner for the Chiefs Association,
okay, is that the
Is
one
it
on
black
Mon-
tie?
Friday night. Yeah, tell Jeff that.
Is that the one on Monticello? I'm gonna miss it, I'll be at the
Oh, that's
House's
the-
Winter Wonderland thing.
Ryan
So Ryan,
Is that Reinhardt's?
Bill Danitas,
Okay, so that's like the Chiefs
where
one.
usually at.
St. Thomas Knights of Columbus pancake and sausage breakfast Sunday. And I got some Board of Realtors Political and Economic Responsibility Committee meeting Monday. That's it until next Tuesday. For sure.
So, quarterly reports are due on Wednesday. Ethics Commission reports. Had a meeting with the assessor's office on DebNet this morning, trying to keep that moving forward. The courthouse progress meeting tomorrow morning at 9. Cosmopolitan pancake dinner tomorrow 11 to 6 or 7. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
forgot about that.
What's tomorrow?
Cosmopolitan at Sellinger Center.
Yeah, you talked about that last week. didn't
And then I think next Tuesday morning, there's a Heartland Port Authority Board meeting, 7:30 at the Chamber. And then this kind of gets past Tuesday, but I saw something from Mac on this feral hog rally over at this Capitol. And I emailed him about where that was gonna be, cause it's supposed to be on the Capitol steps, but aren't they still closed?
Yeah.
So, anyway, I was just kinda curious, I was trying to plan ahead a little bit, but anyway, that's all I got.
Okay, I got some of the same stuff. Meeting though tomorrow with Calf Region Medical Center at 7 a.m. And then Friday, Steve Searlock and a group are working on a Patriots Day parade and some other events for September 11th. So I've got that meeting Friday at noon. And I've got Chiefs holiday party. That's all I've got. Any commission comments? Let's go through bids and contracts and then we'll move Eric up. Bids and contracts, approval and signing of whether or not service agreement.
This is the annual agreement that we
sign for our weather service. It's shared by us and the city. The contract amount is for $17,400. Like I said, it went up a little bit this year. But talking to Brett Smith at the city as well as ourselves, we find it acceptable and recommend approval.
Move that we approve and sign the whether or not contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
Approval and signing of Advantage Nursing contract.
We need to take that off.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Very good.
That's good. Okay. Approval and signing of 2017-38R2 medical grade oxygen with air gas.
For 2017-38, this is the second renewal with Airgas for medical grade oxygen. There's been no change in cost from last year. I'm recommending to stay with Airgas.
I move that we approve and sign the contract for medical grade oxygen with Airgas.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval and signing of sole source renewal 2020-SS01 Teleflex Aero International for EMS.
This is a sole source request for Teleflex for needles and accessories for EMS. It's in their medical supply budget, and this is a sole source that we do every year.
This is just a sole source advertisement. Is that correct?
It's approved for the
The,
advertising.
we already ran this one, since it
Okay.
was one that we did every year.
So we have to approve it as a sole source or
Mhm.
because we already ran it? Okay. I move that we approve and sign the sole source for, who was it?
Teleflex.
Teleflex. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Building code inspections agreement with Centertown.
I've been working with Centertown to develop an agreement with them to conduct building code inspections within the city limits. They contacted me late last year and asked to start doing the inspections after meeting with Jill. We came up with an agreement that they have agreed to and signed. I have it here for your signature.
It's pretty similar to the ones that the health department has for environmental.
You guys got any questions on this or you understand what's going on here?
Been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
I met with them last Tuesday at their city council, and they're anxious to get moving on it.
And Russellville will be coming and then the other communities will
Well,
follow.
I'm gonna, once this agreement, we could work through it, I'm gonna go back to all the other small towns and get actually a signed agreement with them, similar to this one.
I move that we sign the agreement for building permits and code inspection services with the village of Centertown.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? New business, accounts payable review.
I'd ask for approval of accounts payable pending review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna move you back, and I'm gonna move the Clark Avenue and Highway 5063 interchange.
Goodness.
Yeah.
What'd you do to piss him off?
Yeah, let's do what you're ready.
Yeah, I know, right. Now, I figure they're gonna do this in 10 minutes, right?
Thank you, Sam. Usually we have to go last, so it's a little. Appreciate y'all putting this on the agenda. The Clark Avenue interchange with Highway 5063 has kind of been an ongoing topic for several years now. And it's come a little more urgent recently with the governor's cost share funds that have been appropriated to this project. Several different components to the project. I did want to mention that we have, not just me presenting this, but I have Bob Gilbert, Bartlett and West. They were the engineering company, the lead company. They had a sub that did some traffic study work for them under their contract, but they did the project for the interchange and then the intersection at Dunlap. So they're here to present. Matt David with the city, and then Bob Lynch with MoDOT. He's the area engineer for this part of the central district. could explain any MoDOT involvement, if things are, if you have questions about that. So I'll just turn it over to Bob right now, and that's fine.
Can I operate right here? Is that
Yes.
okay? Okay. Figured it might be good to just refresh everyone on the project, some of the history kind of leading up to today, and then the current decision with the governor's cost share dollars and kind of how that affects the project. So I'm just going to give a really quick overview of really the last couple of years, 2018 and 2019's efforts. Actually, this goes back to 2006 and 07. If you don't remember, back in those days, we were working on the Whitten Expressway EIS. When I say we, as a community, it was a city-county MoDOT partnership to look at the corridor from essentially a tri-level all the way out to Eastland. You know, part of the reasoning of this study back then was, you know, looking at that corridor and future traffic growth along the corridor, but also in orange there on the top of the image there is the MSP, and that, of course, in 2004, that was abandoned, or, you know, the new prison opened. So the redevelopment of the prison and then creating access along that was part of the mission of that EIS. And in that EIS, I just grabbed one image from the EIS here. This screen shows it, but that one does not.
There is a delay, sorry.
Oh, okay. There it is. All right, so this image is just one of several, but along the corridor, that study essentially evaluated different alternatives, and I picked this one because it does show the Lafayette interchange, which was built, and then the Clark Avenue is actually the interchange right in the middle of that screen there. Back in the day, when they performed the EIS, they developed just a concept of a dual roundabout interchange at the ramps because of the proximity of Miller and Elm Street intersections as well. These two areas really were just, I'll call it the main priorities identified in the EIS to address as traffic increases along 5063. So that, again, kind of set the stage for what are the potential improvements to consider in the community. So obviously Lafayette was installed, and the city and county started looking at, okay, what are we going to do about Clark going into the future? So the study began in 2018 to look at the corridor. Our study basically went from Atchison. Sorry, there's a delay here, so I need to remember to click before I want it. The Atchison is kind of the straight road on the kind of left side of the screen there, parallel to Highway 50. Obviously, Highway 50 is up there where the red lines are. The study corridor is Clark from Atchison, essentially up to McCarty, which is the very northeast point on that screen. Some things that I guess are of interest related to traffic and movement in the area. Obviously, Lincoln University is the large parcel and image in the upper left of the screen. Off to the bottom right is actually another big driver of traffic in the area, which is the Missouri Highway Patrol headquarters and DNR and some other state office complex generators of traffic. So we looked at the corridor of Clark all the way through that. Clark Dunklin is I wish I had a pointer here, but can I use? Yeah, David is the pointer. Okay. Clark Dunklin, you might go ahead.
Expensive pointer you ever
Yeah. You might go ahead and point at Clark Dunklin, and then that's one area of interest and concern, and then also the ramps and their proximity to Elm on the south, west, and Miller on the northeast.
If it works, you gotta tell them. They won't let me use it. I can have one, I just can't operate it. Is it working? It works for me. It's one of the magic ones.
Can't find it.
Sorry. Here you go, try this one.
What do you have?
Yeah. You take one from me, I
There
gotta
we
back
go.
up.
There we go. This one worked. Okay.
Wait till I get this one.
So just wanted to share with you again that the limits were basically from here down to here, and then this being an intersection of interest, and then the proximity of these two outer roads or city streets to the ramps are a big part of what causes issues at the interchange. So starting with the big picture, we kind of then we actually looked at 13 different alternatives. I'm not going to go through all those today because of interest of time, but I'm going to kind of just race through some of these pretty quickly. We looked at several different ideas, many of which were eliminated during the review of the options, because city, county, and MoDOT personnel were involved in the study. So things such as eliminating access, eliminating roads was part of the consideration. This just indicates Miller and part of Elm closure with signals. There's also another version of this, which would be just leave all the roads in and put in signals instead. I like to refer to that one. That is the Ellis Boulevard option, which I don't even think I have an image of it. No, I do. The next one is essentially what Ellis is today at 54, which is a bit of a problem because those outer roads and all the signals interact with each other. So that, again, both the two I just showed were undesirable for some of those reasons. Obviously, taking access away also becomes problematic. But we looked at some unique ideas, like this one is one idea where we essentially try to combine ramp and outer road traffic, closure of some of those roadways. Again, I'm just going to kind of flip through some of these pretty quickly. This next one is very similar to that option, but with roundabout as the control at the intersection with the ramps. Again, some of these again didn't make it all the way through or make it that far because of some undesirable things such as eliminating access on Miller on the top of the screen there. That's over where the Jeff Tran bus barn is, and so obviously a lot of traffic from that generation would be having to go a different route. This is one alternative that again was not the preferred alternative, but it basically indicates a combination of ramp and Miller traffic all onto one roundabout on the northeast side of the interchange with a barrier running down the middle. That would essentially force a lot of the Elm traffic in the morning to go and use the Dunklin roundabout as essentially a U-turn to get over to Elm. One of the main challenges at the interchange was, I think a lot of you know, but AM traffic coming down this ramp, a good portion of that traffic wants to turn right and then make an immediate left down Elm to go to the Highway Patrol and DNR, other office buildings down there. So this was just, again, an idea. It actually produced some less than desirable effects on traffic at this intersection because, of course, it makes more traffic go there to go back to Elm. So did not, I guess, win the day in the study to pursue this option. So where we landed in the study was an option which is now before you and went before the cost share evaluation committee with the governor's $50 million, one-time cost share program, which was roundabouts at the interchanges, interchange ramps that combine Elm and Miller in to those roundabouts to effectively deal with those right and left turn movements, and then the Clark roundabout as well at Dunklin. A little bit of history here, I guess, too. I want to share. I've got a slide just kind of talking a little bit about, again, the city, county, MoDOT, we're all partners in at least the development of the options in the study. I believe it was city, county, and STP funds that paid for the study. And we had been considering cost share all along. So essentially, all the stuff along 50, of course, is MoDOT state-owned facilities. So any improvements to that, of course, affects and improves our community, but it is on the state system. So all along, we considered someday there'd probably be some opportunity to eventually accomplish the project with state cost share. Now, the history of the cost share program has kind of been up and down over the last several decades. But at the time, back in 2018 and 2019, there really was no opportunity for cost share through MoDOT. Their kind of normal churn of projects and evaluations stopped at that time. There were no further opportunities. So at that time, about a year ago, actually, it was this January, Matt actually presented more or less what I just did as a... Huh?
January 29th?
January 29th, yeah, of 2019. So about a year ago, we presented here in the county, approved moving ahead with Clark Dunklin because that is a city, a county facility. It's not state-owned. So the thought was we'd move ahead with that one project in the hopes that eventually the rest of the corridor would be something we could apply for through a cost share. The study then wrapped up in about March of last year. The city then took that up and decided to move ahead with design in July. We're currently waiting on survey and some other things to get going, and the city's been working on some property purchases. But basically the idea was we studied it to make sure that putting a roundabout in at Clark Dunklin would not prevent or would not challenge the traffic at the interchange, so that then the future interchange work could occur easily in the future when money was available. And then what happened was late 2019, the governor's cost share program was announced, and the application was prepared by the city, and the governor's cost share program basically pays for half of the construction value, which is there on the screen. The grant amount was $1.91 million, and it is for the combination of all the project. Basically, if you take all three roundabouts together as one project. So that's me trying to be very quick to kind of present a little bit of the history of where we were, where we are at this point. And the city then has again applied for the grant and received it. So I think they would take it from here. You guys have any other points to make before I stop? Okay. All right.
And I can tag in if you want, or if you don't have any question for Bob right off. So I put the memo on your all's, or the packet on your all's chair. Basically, that packet just kind of gives everybody the background. It has the application we submitted to MoDOT. So the majority of that's the application that went into MoDOT last October that David and others prepared, and we actually got the chamber to help us with the economic development language to put that together. So it was a good partnership and of a lot of folks. But then then the memo and all the projects that were selected. So we put that out there just so you can kind of see how Jefferson City fared in Cole County against all the other communities, and we were actually a pretty big recipient here in Jefferson City. When you look down through the list, that's about the third page back or fourth of all the projects statewide. But anyway, so that's just kind of the background and the governor's press release and everything. But basically what the city is trying to accomplish today is that the memo on top of all that, we're here to ask the Cole County Commission to participate in the cost share program with us, basically through an interlocal agreement with the city. So what's going to happen is probably pretty shortly, I know the Highway Commission just acted last week on these and said, okay, start the process. So that typically involves the city as the project sponsor to probably have some type of programming agreement with MoDOT, and that'll probably pop up here shortly. We're saying in February. So whenever those agreements get done, we do them on all the time on any grants or projects we do with MoDOT. But when we do that, we have to show physical constraint, meaning that we'll actually complete the project. And so that's why we're here trying to get everybody's input and make sure everybody's on board with the project, because the city will then have to say, okay, we will sign this agreement and move forward and complete the project on time. And it gives timeframes and all that kind of thing. But in my memo here, it's just a couple pages, but bottom line is the money, but I can kind of go through the process a little bit if you'd like of why we're here. Before that, Bob did a good job of it, but basically we were one of 20 projects selected out of almost 50 applicants out of a $50 million statewide pool. So the city and county and MoDOT here in this region came up with 1.9 million of it. And again, that's, as Bob pointed out, 50% of the construction estimate. So I'll go through the estimate here in a second. But just to kind of refresh, like Bob did, where and why we're here, put a lot of this in the memo, but basically this started back in the sales tax. When we were preparing for the sales tax, Lincoln University was discussing some growth options at that time, closing Chestnut potentially, things like that. And so we were looking at the intersections around that. The neighborhood, of course, kind of drove some of that and wanted to see improvements if that were to happen near this Clark Avenue interchange. And so, but then it also just generally helps the existing traffic to the highway patrol, all the office buildings that Bob indicated. But not to be overlooked, pedestrian access all the way across the highway back and forth. You have housing authority properties, elementary schools in the area. We're working on the city-county project over on East High. Obviously, that's very important to the community. And then and when we look at areas like this, a neighborhood grocery store is pretty important to the community. If you don't have a car and can't get to the grocery store, pedestrian access is kind of a big deal. But then kind of another side deal, kind of that future development drive. I think projects like this can drive future development, and that's Lincoln University, maybe also just adjoining properties. I've kind of heard from, anecdotally from a couple properties near this area that it looks like they're in a mode of maybe thinking about redevelopment if this were to, continue to move forward. But anyway, so the timeline again is pretty quick turnaround on these things that we'd have to commit to. The programming agreements would come pretty shortly. Then we'd have to start design, but trying to get to at least the first phase of construction the following year in 2021 would be the goal, and completion by 2022. That's kind of a timing thing. Let's talk through the budget. I'm on the second page of my memo here. So the total project, if you looked at the application, the total project estimate in there was $5.8 million. And so some of that is actual money, cost share, and then in-kind services. So when we put these together, to make a good grant application, we're allowed to use certain percentages for our time, such as inspection, for example, is one I think of the most. Construction, it's noted as construction engineering, but that's our inspector time. But if you look down through there, $5.8 million, the governor's cost share is 1.91, that's 50% of construction, so that leaves $3.89 million. If you look through the application, about almost $900,000 of that is in-kind services, if you will, like survey of the site, the city staff does that. We work with the right-of-way administration, utility relocation, construction staking, construction inspection, all those things. If you looked at the percentages, that almost add up to about $900,000 in the grant application that we're just doing in-house. Then that leaves the local funding commitment about $3 million. So with the project at Clark and Dunklin, we already had talked about 1.7 in that total budget. So we're at a deficit still of 1.3 million. I highlighted that in red there in the middle of the page. So that's really what we're asking, is to split that 1.3 million with the county, and then we'd have our full budget available. So last week we talked to the Public Works and Planning Committee of the city about how we would fund that. And we hadn't originally contemplated this in the sales tax for city-county projects. But having said that, we went back and looked at our priorities and some of the other funds, and we figured that, at least the committee agreed with our proposal is to fund that through other funds, not out of the city-county pool on the city side anyway, and that's coming from sidewalks, some stormwater funds, because we're doing a lot of that work in this project, obviously. Been trying to talk, through this with Eric Landwehr as we go, and we realized that, the county committed to 5.5 million in the city, and that's usually a pretty hard and fast rule with the commission. And so, we're asking for the commission to fund the other 650. Now, where that comes from, that's up to you guys. If you did want to take it out of the 5.5 million, David did produce the sheet showing what that would do. It's this page here. And so this, of course, always is a draft till we're done. But so what he did is he went down and took it from the county side out of the MSP commitment, and this is obviously tied to MSP like Lafayette and other things we've done out with that money. Just so happens when we heard about the cost share approval was when the MSP agreements were coming in, and those aren't on a fast track at this point. Obviously, there's a lot of things that have to happen, but that does still leave considerable money in the MSP pool so that we can get started with other things there. And of course, I'm sure the city would like the county to take it out of other funds, but this is one way to fund it out of your existing commitment if you so choose. Basically something like this doesn't happen unless we have a good partnership with the city and county and MoDOT and Chambers helping us with writing some of this up. But pretty big deal. We haven't had something like this since Highway 179 and doing the hospital and everything out there. So it's kind of a lucky or a good problem to have, trying to find some extra money in this case. And that's kind of where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the environmental impact study on that whole area, including Dunklin and Clark. What year was that done? Is that 13?
It's done at 10.
10?
It got finalized in 10, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was before the Lafayette interchange was done,
Correct.
and before the second high school was built, and also before the break time, so. Have y'all looked at doing any more studies on the traffic flow at Clark and Dunklin at all?
Well, okay, when we do any traffic study, what we do is say, okay, we have a baseline traffic, we count the cars, but then we always add in growth. So even in developed areas, we typically use about a 1% growth factor, and I believe that's what we used here for traffic over the next 20 years or so. And then we layer on, maybe some development traffic. So the development traffic in this area really came from Lincoln University, potential having, closure or diverting traffic with Chestnut, things like that. And so we're trying to hit a 20-year horizon. If we were to build something, we want it to operate really well for the next 20 years. And so that's really how these studies go about doing that.
Okay, something needs to be done over there with the traffic flow, but I don't know if there is the need for it at the Clark and Dunklin so much right now. So if we can get the money from the state to do the Elm Street and Miller, I think that might be a good focus point. But if we don't do Clark and Dunklin right now, does that nix any money we get? Does that change the whole program, the whole grant?
Well, I think the way the grant was put together, we committed to do all three at once, and, the governor kind of has talked about how doing these projects inflates that pool of money he put together to something much larger by communities participating, doing things on their right of way or helping out. And so I'm assuming that would change the application. It would, we'd have to go back and ask, but I think the city council's committed with moving forward with, or they have been thus far with Dunklin and Clark.
I'd be curious to know if we can do just the Miller and Elm Street and then revisit the flow of Dunklin and Clark and address that at a later time possibly, because we don't have the money sitting there. Or if we do, we take it away from MSP. My concern is we have until, what do we figure, June 21st to break ground on it? Or
June
we lose
of 21, yep.
So if that happens, then we've got to come back up with that money somehow. So that's just some of my concerns on it, Matt, so I'll throw them curveballs at you just to look at.
Jeff, one thing with the funding, and you guys can add to it if you want, but for the funding, the 3.8 total construction cost, half is the grant from the governor's cost share.
Right.
That's for all three. So if it's allowable to take one out, it subtracts the amount of match money that you get. I think
Yeah.
the match is
Up to 50% of whatever construction happens. Now, you still have to get approval to take something out, and everybody have to agree to that, but, if you build less, you get less money too. So it's only up to 50% of whatever you construct. So really what's happening is we're taking half MoDOT money to build the Clark and Dunklin as well, and then the other two is how it works. So we combine them in a package to get them to help pay for all three.
But if you don't use half state money for half construction, you've got the 1.7 or 1.9 that you were paying all of for Clark Dunklin to put towards these other ones. So,
Yeah, you could look at it that way, but you get less improvement as well.
Well,
but you don't have to necessarily have this other improvement if you get the traffic flow going through there and it doesn't justify doing it, then you're paying for something you don't need there.
Well, I think it is. I think the traffic study did show the need, and
I don't remember it saying it ever needed a roundabout or lights. I think it said that was one of the improvements you could make to improve traffic flow. And I go through there a lot, so I see it. I've been through there during early morning hours of school, and there's a cluster over by Elm and Miller for sure. But the Dunklin and Clark now with break time closed, I think that's made a lot of difference. I think with Lafayette interchange open, it's made a lot of difference. So.
Yeah, I might point out, I guess, the traffic counts that'll used to produce the study, Jeff, were done in, I don't remember exact dates, but in 2018-ish. February, okay. So everything with Lafayette was in place and operating, for years at that point. So I guess as far as any kind of alteration to traffic patterns right now, the break time closure is probably the one thing that is different. But of course, that property is likely to develop or redevelop into something else as well, so we don't know what that would be. So I guess I wouldn't see necessarily a good reason to expend funds to restudy that when we don't know what's gonna go into break time. Basically, everything else is kinda as it was when the study was completed. And I think the other thing that's been mentioned in some different discussions or media and such about the project recently is that traffic volumes in and of themselves at Clark and Dunklin don't necessarily drive, what the project should be. So, we obviously take into account what the traffic volumes are, and developing what a solution should look like. But other factors such as safety of the traveling public, pedestrian movements, et cetera, are what we take into account. So I didn't mention this on the map, but on the upper side of this, which would kind of be north and west, Dunklin is rising as you come to Clark, and essentially there is a sight distance issue looking to the south. So one of the reasons a roundabout is preferred versus let's say a signal or other stop control is because of that sight distance. So that's again another factor. There's lots of other factors besides just traffic volume, I guess, that goes into
Right, and then just the future growth, we have contacted Break Time, and, they weren't interested in selling the property or anything like that, so they are holding it. I'm certain they have a reason to do that. Are they trying to redevelop that into something else? I don't know, but they certainly weren't interested in selling any of it, so.
So that was an idea Dr. Ambrose and we were talking. Going down, Elm it's a residential street. No matter what you do, you've got all that traffic going down. Instead of, you bought Lee's Market, but instead if you would have bought Break Time, you've got that alley down there. You could have made a nice entrance from that roundabout down to East Elm and just basically, grassed over the entrance exit there on Clark Avenue, because that road was never made for the amount of traffic it has on it. And I think there's still cars parked on one side as well,
Clark?
on Elm.
Oh, I'm not
Okay.
certain.
But anyway, that was
Yeah, certainly.
that would
there's-
give you a better access to Elm. If, but again, like you said, Break Time isn't interested in selling, but, with
Well,
the
another
alley
thing-
down there, you've got that already, so that was just an idea.
Yeah, and then I think we had that, one of the options looking at, can you have some kind of back road there, coming out this? And all that is still on the table, so if anything were to redevelop, when the soy diesel, I think I got the name,
Biodiesel.
we actually worked with them to improve some of that, it's really an alley, but to get to their parking lot, there had to be a small improvement there. But as properties were to redevelop, we would be looking at, what is going to have to occur back there. Another thing I know the council mentions is just kind of the squirrely geometry of the intersection itself. To cure that, certainly it could be done without a roundabout. By the time you start tearing up pavement and rebuilding things, you're basically putting back around, you could have put back a roundabout because it's just pavement at that point. It's not signal equipment and all those other things that go into it. And so, when you look at that map, that's just kind of the schematic view of kind of where they think the grades hit and about how much pavement they got to rebuild. You can see the bridge over the highway stays in place and all the options. That was something MoDOT wanted to see. They just worked on that bridge. So, through design, we'll try to, limit all that and hopefully get the construction down even further. But we hope we'll put our thumb on Bob Gilbert here to make that happen. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at, and we'd like to, I guess, I need to carry a message back to the city, if the county is going to participate or not, and, or, if you want to think about it, we can come back, but.
See, this is the first we've really heard about it. We've read about it in the paper, but, I mean, and we've had some emails from Eric, but I mean, nobody from the city has ever said anything, and all of the articles in the paper are saying this is an agreement between the governor, MoDOT, and the city. Never once was the county mentioned. So, I think we probably need to do some talking because, you know, we're kind of not been in this planning, so,
Well, I talked with Eric last week about it. He answered a lot of my questions,
Yeah.
and then I just gave you my concerns and questions, and I don't know, Chris, did you have anything you wanted to add to it? Or I think we probably need to sit down and talk about it too, and
Well, I mean, I just have concerns with I mean, the only place we have to take it is from MSP. And so we just got proposals from 2 developers on MSP less than a month ago. And now we're talking about taking money away from that. And so, you know, are we not gonna do those projects? I mean, that's the way it sounds to me, is so we've committed money to do infrastructure at MSP, but now we're gonna spend some of that money that we had allocated for infrastructure. So, I mean, that's my question is, are those projects not gonna happen? I mean, because 2 developers aren't gonna sit on projects that they've just submitted for 2 years. I mean,
I think the sales tax ends in 2022, so we're, knocking on the doorstep of that. Historically, we've all tried to spend our money as it comes in and goes, bring it, put it back out. Projects of that magnitude obviously need some design lead time and things of that nature, but many of those projects probably exceed what we have available anyway. So we're probably looking at next sales tax on some of those, but we still have some money to get the designs going if need be. We have spent in the past, over the last at least 15 years, the MSP money's been in there. We've spent it on various things around this area, try to improve the area adjacent to MSP, tie it, whether it's Capitol Avenue, Lafayette Interchange. I think we've done about 4 or 5 different road projects all surrounding there. Certainly in one of the applications, there's a lot of additional funding needed, but since no decision's been made there, this would seem like a good use of it, but, that's really for the decision makers, so.
what is our time frame for this?
Well, again, we'd go to construction in 2021, so, but we have to do the programming agree with MoDOT prior to that here shortly in the next couple months, so. But that's when you have to constrain the project and know where you're gonna pay for it from.
so if we spent money from MSP in this sales tax cycle, you're saying that we would ask for more money for MSP in the next sales tax cycle?
I would anticipate that, but again, of course, that's a future decision, but.
So could we go over some of the funding here, on your funding sheet for the sales tax? And obviously I'm seeing, I'm just trying to figure out the county contribution. Is that just what we have remaining in our funds?
Yeah, so what David tries to do here is, we each talked about 5.5 million, and so he's kind of tried to color code it, if you will. And so, the Clark Avenue, through the different categories, anything in black over on the left side was that's how it was listed in the sales tax discussions. And then as we complete them, what year they're either completed or what have you, and kind of where, sometimes we have a design, the city may just fund the whole design, and then we even it back up in construction, things like that. And so you can we keep just a running tally. That's why when the numbers get pretty exact there, that's the running tally. And the goal by the end is everybody's down to 5.5 million. So really, if you look down through the projects, we've done conceptual design on Clark Avenue, and then had a pool of money for construction, Capitol Avenue improvements. The city took some money out of this sales tax for that. That's the one right here adjacent to the prison. Myrtle Avenue over by Helias, that's our contributions over there. When they did that project, again, Clark Avenue will need some money out of there. East High Street, that's the one we're working on now. That was a portion of it there out of that one in the red, and then you drop down. Again, Dunklin Corridor, the bridge we're working on together. You can kind of see the splits as we go to the right side, And then East High, again, another pool of money we use to complete that project. You get down to the very bottom, Morris Packaging Rail Spur, something that either just finishing up or did. So you can kind of see the various pools of money. The city actually used a different pool of money for that. And I think maybe even the county used some older sales tax funds. So you can see in this sales tax period, it wasn't much out of this sales tax period, just a little bit by the county. High School Road, that's the one next to the new high school, 1.5 million. Split that one straight up. We haven't actually paid that bill, I don't believe. So that money is obligated, but it's still awaiting some finalization of some paperwork from the school district. And again, Clark Avenue roundabout. So we're trying to put some money for design or whatever, what have you here. And then we always try to save a little bit. David listed project overruns, underruns, kind of 80,000, kind of we'll probably have some change orders at the end. Who knows what goes on, but we always try to leave a little cushion. And then you get down to the only money left on this sheet, really, after you get past Clark, is MSP money. So I feel that we've done a pretty good job as a city and county keeping up with the sales tax, getting the projects out ahead of time, and so we're down to MSP. That's pretty much the unobligated money at this point if we were due Clark Avenue. And that's why I said I understand, the commission in the past has been pretty, whether it's this commission or other ones I worked with, it always indicated, about 5.5 million is all they could come up with for this. And so understanding that, we went ahead and, put that Clark money there. And, we share the same sheet with the city council, and everybody's aware of where we're at on all these funds, so.
So where are you getting your money from?
Well, that's what I said in my memo. The city said, okay, is there any other place to take it? So we can still have some funds for MSP to get some designs going or what have you. And so in highlighted in red, we said, well, we do have sidewalk funds available. So what we did there, we went back and said over the next life of our sales tax, we're proposing to spend some of those and then also some stormwater funds. So obviously Clark Avenue contains a considerable amount of sidewalk and access improvements for folks trying to get back and forth through there, and then also some stormwater. And then, the reason I do this is show the city council, what we have money available. So, the reason we kind of targeted the sidewalk funds and the amount we did, typically there'll probably be another grant cycle come out for sidewalks, so we want to have something available to still fund another project there as a city. Same with stormwater, we'll still have $1 million to spend in our neighborhood stormwater. So.
So it seems like that obviously there were some improvements done on Capitol Avenue, and we funded to a certain level on Capitol Avenue and didn't, thought it was a little fancy or whatever. Seems like now we're kind of making up for some of those differences there. And so when you make up for the differences, now we're actually funding those improvements that were done on Capitol to the full amount. So when you do the enhancements and everything else, at some point, you gotta play catch up to fund all that. And so, it kind of goes against what we talked about is here's our funding level for Capitol Avenue. And now we play catch up at the end of the sales tax cycle. And so kind of defeats the whole purpose of having those conversations, but that's just a comment. I think it's a good project. I just, I mean, I have concerns about taking money out of MSP, to fund it, so, and that's the only place that, we have to take it, or the majority of it.
Yeah, I think probably we need to sit down and kind of go over this more, because, you know, there is a lot of implication. Shifting money around, it does change the dynamics of everything, so, I don't know.
We want to try to set something up and have those discussions, or?
Yeah, I know we need to sit down and look at everything, so, we could have a standalone meeting just about this, or,
So just to circle back to a date, like a hard date that they need an answer, we probably ought to know what that is.
Well, obviously, you know, we haven't got an agreement from MoDOT, the commission, their commission approved the project. You know, when we get that agreement, we'll have some time to put it together, but, you know, typically, I assume it's gonna be in February timeframe. Bob shaking his head yes, so another month or so.
I'd still like to know what the difference would be if we take the Clark Dunklin roundabout out at this time, address the other two that I think are the biggest problem. Check the traffic flow after that and see if it justifies another roundabout at all. I know you're saying we're losing half of the construction cost of that, but I don't think we're losing that. We're not spending something on something we don't need to have. I mean, diapers can be on sale at Walmart. I don't need diapers, so, well, not yet. 20 more years. Maybe. So, my analogy's on Ernest Coffee. But I mean, I agree, it's a great project, and I love the state's bringing some money in here and trying to get their money to go farther too by getting involved with these projects. But I'm afraid of taking money from the MSP project if that's just gonna cause a problem, because at the end of 21, we'll have to get have the 22 approved, and we'll have another year before we're gonna have money coming in for it. So, and MSP's kind of sitting there, kind of teetering on the edge too. It could go anytime.
Just some dates about the sales tax. It ends in 21, the current one.
December 31st.
The county's vote is in April of 20, or April of 2020. So as we start moving towards that, we'll be looking at projects for that next sales tax this year.
Yeah, those meetings
Fall
get,
or so of this year, so it's coming quick to figure out what we're doing with the next sales tax. Another thing in play here is we don't wanna be sitting at the end of the current sales tax with some money there that hasn't been obligated or spent or whatever, so some things are kind of coming to play really quickly all at once. This project comes into play, and I think the commission needs a little more time to
Yeah,
think
sure.
about this
I mean-
and kind of hash out some things and some priorities on their end, so.
yeah, our first presentation to the county, or the city council, which was just the half of them, that the committee was last Thursday. And so typically we try to hit them 1, 2, you know. I think last time we hit the commission, then the council on just talking about the Clark Dunklin, but, certainly people need time to digest the information, and that's why we're trying to get everything here to you at once, so you can look at it all. And I realize a lot of information, and, wanna go back and study on that, probably talk to staff. And we'd be glad to participate if you need us, but if you're just talking about internal discussions, that's fine too, but, whatever you'd like, available. They pay us to do it, so. But I do wanna say, since MoDOT's here, and I know the newspaper's here, you know, this opportunity arose very quickly back in October. We didn't even have time to really kind of go through our normal process at the city for putting the grants together. We had a couple quick meetings, put it together and put it right back out. I think it was almost a 30-day turnaround or something like that. It's very fast. And so, I don't wanna say we went fishing or whatever, we chased a car and caught one, so here we are. You know, and it was very good of the governor and his team to select Jefferson City to be part of this group. And I wanna, don't wanna diminish the governor and his team putting us on the list. And so appreciate that, and certainly, hopefully we can get this project moved forward. So.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody, for coming and presenting and discussing it. These projects are
Yeah,
pretty
it's,
complex.
it's a
lot
pretty
of
big deal, and like I
people
said,
involved, and
tons of moving parts. If there's any questions, always call us.
We'll just keep in touch with Eric and let him keep in
Yeah.
touch with you all if that works.
Sure.
I mean, he got us a lot of information in the last week from you all, so do appreciate that. I know you always look forward to coming up here.
Every time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, we will go back to our regular agenda. County clerk to discuss presidential preference primary election overtime cost.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
We're available to you.
Okay.
Very good, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, so for the presidential preference, the state won't pay the overtime unless it's paid out to the employees. So basically, it's just a pass-through. So we're just asking for money. Kristen said we had to get the money put in our budget for the overtime, which was not put in because we didn't know. Normally, we just get comp time, but they have to show it actually paid out to reimburse us, so. I kind of figured up about $3,000 is what. In 2016, we had 4,000. I think some of the postal canvas was going on then too. So I think we had a little overtime involved with that back then. We couldn't really break it out, but I think that'd be plenty, $3,000.
So we're just doing a payday loan.
Payday loan, there you go.
Yeah.
It's just a wash because they'll pay us back. We just have to approve it.
Yeah, they're probably not gonna pay us interest. No telling how long it'll take them to pay us either.
Well, and they won't pay for rental equipment or anything. They took all that out, so we can't get any of that anymore either, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we just need to do a court order then? Okay.
So do
I'm good.
I'm good too.
should we do a court order for the amount, or do we wait until we actually know what the amount is?
Usually I don't until we actually receive the money, do I do a court order. As long as he's got permission to do it, we can either do a
Transfer the
now
amount, okay.
and then do a court order later.
Okay.
Okay.
And you'll break it out, or we have to prove to them, like we have to send them receipts that it was paid out or something. You'll be able to.
Probably have to show them pay forms or something. Other than that, there's no other proof, but yeah.
Somehow we have to send proof, all our receipts now, so.
So when they work.
Now, before we really have to do all
Then we'll probably just do a
It's
transfer
kind of-
now.
Do we have a pay code for that or something? For-
Overtime.
for-
There's nothing in the budget for it now, but yes.
But I mean, do we have a presidential primary pay code or something where it would be separate from other overtime so that we could, that's something we can do, or?
I guess I could talk to Kristen if she wants to put a sub-account out there for overtime. It'd have to be a sub-account attached to overtime.
So most of our overtime is by statute, so they know pretty much.
Right.
What hours we have to be here.
They probably will require timesheets or something like that, and then proof that it was paid.
I was just thinking if you put it on a different pay code or something and paid it at an overtime rate, then you'd have data going forward that this is what we paid in the presidential primary for overtime.
We could. I mean, most others for
Unless-
elections, and you can tell by months
Yeah,
what you're
okay.
paying, so.
This is the only
Making
one.
it too complicated, so,
I mean,
yeah.
I could talk to Kristen about it, we
That's
can
fine.
maybe put a project, call it a project, and then put each one of the elections as a project, and then track it that way.
Either way.
Because this will be the only one you pay out. Normally, we just get comp times.
Right.
So we'll just transfer 3,000 into his overtime amount?
For now.
Okay. Good with that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't really have to vote on
Alright.
it, just as long as I.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
See, you didn't even take 5 minutes, Sam. You made him wait for all that.
Oh,
Kind of wondering now.
I I didn't know how long.
Go grab
the
a
city
brick
was-
and throw it
I
at
didn't
it,
know
just
how long
make
the
sure you
city
don't
was
hit
gonna
me.
take. Okay. Signing of John Ruth engagement letter.
What about?
Chris asked me to know this one, this is the annual engagement letter to do his assessment appeals.
Okay. Is it pretty much the same or
Yeah, it's the same thing, only dates have changed.
rates the same?
Yeah, there's a not to exceed of 30, and the hourly rates is the same, so the last
Okay.
page is be the same.
Got any questions?
No.
I move that we sign the engagement letter with John Ruth.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have anything else?
State surplus, I think. is-
Oh, I missed that. Yep. Signing of state surplus property forms. Thank you.
There's a lot of signatures on here. This is just the, so our employees can go over to state surplus and buy. They make us fill out an application or form every year. And it's got the list of employees that are able to go over there and purchase. And Jill did review it, so.
Okay. I move that we sign the state
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, no, I just thought we were talking about it and not doing it, so, yeah. Go ahead and finish that.
I move that we sign the state surplus property forms.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just making sure it's okay.
okay.
Been talking with Dwayne Carty with Jeff City Renegades, and we want to try to have a county employee day, so I'm going to get some dates, and we'll have a day when employees come out there. I'll find out what ticket prices are and stuff, if there's a discount for employees, and we'll recognize our employees and see if there's anything else we can do special. If you haven't been to a Renegades game, you need to make it out there. It's pretty fun watching them guys out there. They hustle around, they really try. Pretty entertaining at times. You get to see a few games and know a few of the guys and their personalities. It's entertaining, so. You go out there, take your kids out there, and decent food and cold beverages. So I'll get you that information.
Okay.
Anything else?
Bill? Got something?
Just kind of an FYI for you real quick. Received documents yesterday. I hope you all recall, every 5 years we're required to do a hazard mitigation plan that is approved through the state and through FEMA. So just like with our tornado this past year, that's things we can look at and try to look at things that maybe we can try to mitigate. Ours is due actually in 2021, but I was able to get the paperwork yesterday, so we can put that on the agenda next Tuesday, that you all can sign this. This is for Midmo RPC that actually does this. The state pays them to do our mitigation plan. It takes about 6 months to get this through, but as I mentioned, things that we can put in our mitigation plan in the future if there's a disaster. If we recognize that plan, it helps more for FEMA to recognize that, and it helps the county and the city pay for that, get reimbursement. So this always goes to the Regional Planning Commission. They do the work in combination with us. That's approved and sent to FEMA. So just like this last year, Chris, as you know, Centertown, and they wanted an outdoor siren, they never showed up at the meetings 4 years ago, so it was not in the plan. So we've had to rewrite a bunch of stuff to add that to that for them to be able to. So it's a pretty important deal that we look at. So it's a combination, city, county, public works, school systems, water districts, fire districts, everybody's involved in that plan. So if we put that on the agenda next Tuesday, we'll bring it forward, you can sign it. The other thing, at 10 o'clock yesterday morning, we received our state grant information. I think I usually have told you that it's in February. They've moved it. It starts yesterday and ends January 31st at 4 o'clock. We have to have our grant application submitted. So Sierra and I've already started working with that. And so we may come back up to commission, see what we do, see what you all want to approve before we send that off before the deadline. So we got a few weeks, but they're rushing pretty good this year. About a month ahead. Just want to kind of let you know that we'll be working on it. today at 4 o'clock, so we'll go from there. That's it. Any
So do we have some notes as far as obviously the tornado that hit in May? I mean, obviously things that we need to include in our plan that maybe we didn't have in our
I
plan.
think we'll see that.
Yeah.
I think we'll see from all the other infrastructure folks, city public works, county public works. You know, we might look at some in our flooding, that's all we'll tie in, things we need to really look at. Might be something we list like the levy, so it's always there. So future, you know, something happens there, that's all recognized, so pretty important. It's
Yeah, I
about an 80-some page document, so.
I think it'd be, I mean, obviously we were paying kind of that charitable group to come in and manage all the stuff. But I think it would be important that we have that prearranged, you know, on a yearly basis so that, hey, if we have something, you're our vendor and
Right.
you'll come in and you'll do that. We'll find a
Great idea.
place for you, but so maybe we have to revisit that every year or something, but I think that's important that, you know, everybody should really have that in their plan, or maybe you could bid it ahead of time or whatever. So you can just establish your rates and,
There's a lot of things this past year that we did. Before we've had that disaster, now we've had it, that light switch on, it's like, we need to really look at some of this stuff.
Yep.
So I'm with you on that, but we'll bring that back, you'll be a part of it the whole way through. Dave Bach will be coming up and seeing and bringing it up to speed on that too. The good thing about Sierra was just starting to do the hazard mitigation for Boone County, so now she knows all that, that's gonna be a real plus for you.
Good.
Okay?
so we have to approve that with them or?
Just an MOU,
Okay.
get it signed, and Dave has to do the application, but wants to make sure the commission's.
So David will bring that to us and then we'll
I'll
sign
bring
it.
it
or-
next Tuesday,
Okay.
but I'll see if he's gonna be here. If not, I've got it all. We got
Okay.
three copies with me.
Okay,
Okay?
sounds great.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Bill.
you.
We had a census meeting yesterday with the city. We're doing it jointly, Jeff City and Cole County. And we need 600 census workers to go out after Census Day is April 1st. And people who haven't sent back their papers will go knock on their doors and stuff. So I think at this time, we've got like 240 people signed up, so we still need another, we gotta get 600. We're gonna do there's a 2-minute slide presentation that Melissa's gonna show next week, and just kind of informational more than anything. But 10 years ago, Cole County as a whole, we were above the national average, with the exception of Westview Heights and then also the city. So we need a good count on this. So, but we'll have another meeting February 3rd, and then we're going to have a job fair. Actually, they're doing one Friday at Lincoln University and Saturday at the Missouri River Region Library at the Capitol Mall. From libraries 11 to 2, Capitol Mall is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So, but
They reached out to any of the local churches to see if.
yeah, that's where
See if they,
Dr. Gould, Reverend Gould, is one of the co-chairs, and she's working with the churches. Yeah.
so do they have any data on,
Let's see that real quick.
on how cities do after a catastrophic event or anything? I mean, is it definitely more
I
challenging?
think that's what the city's worried about is, they say, well, they think a lot of people left Jeff City. I don't think they really have. I think they might be living with friends or family, or there's a gentleman that's running an efficiency above Spectators now who lost his apartment in a tornado. So I think a lot of them are still here. We just got to find them. And but basically the workers, you got to be 18 years old, and it'd be working like May through September. You minimum of 20 hours, maximum of 40 hours, and it pays $17 an hour and 52 cents a mile. So, for high school, other people, that's really pretty decent. But we'll make a little presentation next week too. Talk a little more on it.
Did you send us this email?
No, I just got it today,
Okay.
so I'll send it over to you. At the library, ran that off. So, yeah, I'll send it to you.
I got a couple college boys that might need some work.
Yeah, I think that's.
Renegades ball team.
The whole team.
That's
Well,
right.
I mean, that's, as long as they're 18, that's,
Oh, well, they're 21 and
well, I mean, they gotta be 18 is a minimum. Jeez. Anything else? Okay.
I move we go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri for personnel issues sub 13.
second.
Roll call.
Sam?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. I'll let you know.